And our kind facilitator is going to help us, and she started the recording for us. Great. So here we are. We're going to be talking about this today. And again, I'm Heather McMorrow with Northeastern University. I'm one of the instructional designers here, and I also work as a program manager, and I'm also an EDD student in our education program.
Yeah, and
go ahead. Yep.
This is Amy again. So I work a lot with the library technology here, and we also run the makerspace. And so I feel like blockchain, makerspace, a lot of technologies all would have a lot of potential. So very happy to have all of you to be here today. So first of all, if you could please indicate on the map where you are coming from, so that we can know, are we talking to an international group or only in the United States? Or where are you coming from? So if you could indicate where you're coming from by clicking on the area, that'd be great. Okay, so we have two North America, East Coast and West Coast so far. All right.
Midwesterners.
Yes.
Very cool.
Okay, so yeah, very nice to see all of you joining our session today. So next, we are very interested to hear why you guys choose to come to this session. So would you mind in the chat box text in the reason you chose this session? Oh, I also got one from New Zealand. Great, thank you. We are international. So we have people interested in generally the blockchain applications. OCLC also joined our session today, and they are interested in library applications. Great. Integration, unification, great. To help myself understand the more practical and tangible implications of blockchain. Great, thank you so much for inputting. Yes, Ivor, we will talk about this as well. Okay, wonderful. Thank you so much for your input. So now we're gonna just go ahead to start our presentation.
Yeah, so first we just want to give you some background to understand the challenges that all of us have. We all have the potential to face challenges that people around the world face every day, and how blockchain is thought to be a tool that might change the landscape of global migration, especially for people in forced migration situations. We think of refugees as displaced persons. As a Westerner, we tend to think of unskilled laborers or farmers, but you have to think too about the kid who's in high school or college getting ready to graduate when the hurricane hits, or the computer programmer who just graduated college when the government decides to crack down on his family because of their religion, or a doctor or a nurse who's been working for years and now they're being forced to leave their country because of drought. This presentation obviously is not going to save the world in and of itself, and it's not probably going to leave you with a lot more questions than answers, honestly, just because it is such a new technology. So this is just a high-level overview of what we're going to cover today, and I'm just going to read them off kind of as a bullet list, just to give you a sense. So blockchain has the potential to safeguard credentials from natural and man-made disasters. It can help ensure safety and ease challenges of migration, decrease or eliminate the when you're obtaining your credentials, when you're moving around, lessen reliance on centralized organizations, and cut out the middleman. It can help reduce dependence on international aid. If you were to throw in IoT and machine learning, it has the potential to reduce human error and provide data collection and transparency for regulators, which this one is a big one as well. The transparency piece and the accountability, simplify and speed up authentication processes, and provide faster, more accurate verification for student and employee their records by universities and employers. And there are several more that we could throw in here. One of the things we're not going to touch on too strongly is working with smart contracts, and that could also benefit mobile people. But again, it's not a magic bullet. Humans are still part of this process, and there are various blockchain platforms, so to speak. So there are a lot of challenges for coordinating any effort to implement blockchain in any industry. One of the main takeaways I'm hoping that you'll get and understand from this, the benefit of blockchain for the 10 million people in the world who are stateless. And stateless means that you cannot prove where you're from, and therefore you're stuck and you can't migrate. These people have been denied a nationality, access to basic rights like education, healthcare, employment, and freedom of movement. They're skilled and unskilled, professional and college-educated people who don't have access to a passport, their professional or academic credentials or transcripts, and they just can't even prove who they are and what skills they have to offer. So this trend is growing, and this is just a quick look at how the trend by year is increasing. And sorry, there we go. So what we can see with those increases is that with climate change and the global growth of nationalism, we're creating the conditions for further global dehumanization and these kinds of disasters. And the precariousness of the situation should not be underestimated. Countries hosting the majority of displaced persons they're not the most stable themselves. If we could take some of the people out of the equation as far as if it's a human-made conflict, if we could take them out to a large degree, non-human and technology that is safe and has built-in trust, so to speak, mechanisms, it might be the answer. And this is why everyone's so excited about the potential that blockchain has. So this, just to give you a sense of the scale of this. So this is the biggest example. Let's see if this works. I just wanted to give you a view of this. So 1 million Rohingya have been displaced from their homes, and this is just drone footage from the Kali refugee camp in Bangladesh. And 800,000 Rohingya live here. It's the speed and the scale of the exodus that's created the world's most densely populated settlement. And just for comparison, if you think about the size of, say, Boston has 685,000 people. San Francisco has about 884,000. And these are cities with high rises. These are camps that are right on top of each other. So you have 800,000 people. And, you know, cities have high rises as well as the infrastructure to handle it. So this is one of the major problems. If we were able to help these people to move and get jobs and get education, we might be able to prevent some of this. So one of the other issues is that there what's called protracted refugee situations, and it's hard to say what the oldest camp really is because people get absorbed into different areas and you lose track, and at some point they wind up just becoming their own tent city. So at what point is it a camp? So these protracted situations could be partially solved if the 10 million stateless people in the camps could migrate and return to school and find jobs and get paid with, you know, there are all kinds of things that this could help with. So the Migration Policy Institute coined the term brain waste. So we've heard about brain drain and all these other things. So brain waste is the idea that we have these people who have these degrees and they can't use them. And so Currently, there are nearly 2 million college-educated immigrants and refugees in the U.S. alone who are unemployed or working in low-skilled jobs despite the years of education and work experience. Here's an amazing thing, that they're out there and they have the ability to work, and we need to focus on this. According to the National Office for Refugee and Stateless Persons, one person who leaves a UN-run camp with a paid job is able to help 5 members of his social circle or her social circle. So, sorry, I'm at my office. So though the rest of the world is moving around a lot, mobility in the U.S. is down. But as Americans, you know, we used to move when we needed to find jobs, but that's what the rest of the world is doing right now. So it's the highest levels of migration and mobility since World War II. So if you just think of the credentialing situation, to drive this point home, just imagine that you're attending college and your region is hit by a natural disaster. This here is an image of Tulane University right after Katrina. And then more recently you have Puerto Rico, and Puerto Rico has 11 campuses. University of Puerto Rico has 11 campuses, and there's approximately 58,000 students and 5,000 faculty. And in these cases, luckily, state universities across the country were able to absorb those students as they chose. And the other thing about the U.S. is that for homeless students, we have something called the McKinney-Vento Homeless Education Assistance Act, which requires receiving schools to immediately enroll students regardless of records. And it puts the onus on the school to track down the records if they can. So this is in place, obviously, for homeless people, but it's becoming more, as we have disasters, becoming used more also for our people who are migrating to get away from disasters within the United States. So the types of mobility that you'll see, you know, you have nationally, you have internationally, you have forced, and then, you know, this blockchain would also address the idea of, oops, sorry, go forward. Nationally, internationally forced opportunity, family reunification. For instance, also Northeastern right now is encouraging campus-to-campus mobility. So we have campuses in, I think it's 7 different areas around the world right now, and we're trying to push this idea of one Northeastern, where we're promoting global mobility via these regional campuses. So trying to get our students to take advantage of courses while they're in school. So the current challenges with credentialing include fake credentials. You pad your CV, and I've had, when I worked at Tufts, we had several students that took certificate programs and didn't finish, but they still put it on their LinkedIn. There's a long process for checking credentials. It's very arduous. You have human error if the schools themselves are comparing transcripts, and then there's no way of knowing the level or the rigor of the program that the student is coming from.
Yeah, and also, as we said here, there's also other challenges such as the cost. There's no way we can get our transcript or certificate without a cost, and also the time involved in that. And also more importantly is, even if we get a certificate from someone, we don't actually really directly connect to the university or organization who actually originate from, who actually train the student. The originating university or the agency is disconnected in the verification process, and then let alone the red tape to access the information. So, and also, with all of these challenges, let's look at different kind of things that could be put on the blockchain in terms of the credentialing. There's continuing education, there's insurance coverage, there's malpractice history, employer recommendations, identification, courses, grades. So this is just a selected list of the things that could be on the blockchain or could be used as credentials, but the list is obviously it's beyond this. Every perspective of our life, there is some sort of credentialing that is involved in here. Moving next, we talk about the challenges with the credentialing. I guess all of you have this question, like why blockchain is in the picture for the credentialing? Why? Because for this past years, many people have tried to solve the credentialing problem. So why blockchain is in the picture now? I think by this time, a lot of you already hear from other sessions about the characteristic of the blockchain. There's a lot more, but I just picked 3 of them that I thought going to directly link to credentialing. The first one is the most famous one. It's permanent, it's not changeable. So I think a lot of us working in the technology, we almost feel like we are living in a world that there's never anything that is not changeable. So everything is changeable. Audio is changeable, video is changeable, so that put a lot of dot in it, right? If something is always changeable. But one of the fundamental characteristics of the blockchain is that it's permanent, it's not changeable. And then it's built on consensus. So if I say I have this degree from this university and I put it on the blog, it doesn't work. Somebody else, the originating university has to come here and then to validate and saying, yes, this student did graduate from my school. So there needs to be the consensus building, which makes my claim of I graduate from this university a valid one. And also it's the decentralized nature of the blockchain. I think we are living in the world more and more functions in our life become centralized. We rely on Amazon to buy something. We rely on YouTube to watch video. But the whole movement of this decentralize a lot of things make blockchain one of the unique technology that we could use. Imagine like we don't really need to rely on someone to get credentials. Imagine we are just a node on a distributed network where we put our credential in there and then we don't have to rely on someone to say, okay, I need to get the credential from this verification agency. So permanent, consensus, and decentralized are the 3 characteristics I think make blockchain a very promising technology to use in the credentialing. Some potentials of using blockchain in the credentialing. For example, we could use it to aid to the refugees and internally displaced persons. And also, there is better coordination of the aid relief activities. There's always a lot of brain waste in this. I'm going to have Heather talk about this slide.
Oh, sorry. Yes. So when we're talking about aid for internally displaced persons or refugees, which, just for your knowledge, the 2 different designations, refugees are people who cross over borders of a country, whereas then obviously internally displaced persons are, you'll see IDP, where they've moved from one region within a country to another part of the same country. But and you've probably heard that refugees send home money quite a bit, and those are called remittances. And remittances, there are systems that are set up in countries that receive remittances quite a bit, and they tend to charge about 12% interest on that. So with blockchain, if you were to use, say, Bitcoin or something like that, if you started using cryptocurrency, you could cut down on some of these fees or cut down on the fees altogether. And then there's better coordination for relief activities. So that's one of the biggest issues that humanitarian assistance tends to have, is that when there is, if you use Haiti as an example, especially because it's so close to the United States, it was inundated with church groups and other organizations that have never done humanitarian aid before. And then you have the regular players, Save the Children and CARE, And within those, they have things that are called clusters that they try to coordinate as much as possible because people are gathering data on the ground. And so this would allow them to better share information and coordinate their relief activities to prevent duplication. And also, if you were to look at monetary aid to these affected populations, it is also more beneficial to provide financial support than shipped food aid because it helps the individual and it also helps the local economy by providing actual cash. So but then you wind up having a lot of corruption with that. So if you use cryptocurrency again, you know, the cryptocurrency is what we know about blockchain the most, but blockchain is the underlying technology, which I'm sure you guys have heard that in your previous sessions. But if you used, you know, something like Bitcoin, you can create a more accurate record of the global mobility. How are people spending, you know, what are they spending it on? How are they spending it? And when you need to, you can shift your disbursements based on the data that you've collected. So if there's another region that needs it more than another. And also 7 billion people worldwide, including refugees or displaced people, don't have access to credit services or banks or other formal financial institutions. And so they lack a credit history or verifiable economic identity. And it excludes them from the global economy. And the use of cryptocurrency, it might be a good solution. And then there's potential for global standardization, so you can look at the data that is collected and try to do something that's standardized, because all of this data, I mean, other than the NGOs doing a lot of the collection, a lot of data is just provided by the countries themselves, and everybody has a different, you know, as we all know, when you're trying to do data management, everybody has a different idea of what they're looking for and what they're tracking. So having some sort of global standard is useful. And it also prevents statelessness. And again, I opened with this, that the idea of being a stateless person is horrible, and you're stuck, and to be able to help prevent that. So without an identity, what can you do? Identification helps with housing, jobs, healthcare, and just simply being able to move where the jobs are and to go to school.
Yeah, so continue of other potentials. For example, whatever credentials we get on the blockchain could be tamper-proof credentials. We know that, and it will lower or even eliminate the cost of obtaining a copy of transcripts or professional credentials. Once it is on the block, we know it is verified. We know it is not changeable, so we know it's trustworthy. And also, if we automate the whole process, we can remove the potential for human errors. So there's a lot of potentials that blockchain can do with credentialing. Now we want to move into some possible applications people are thinking of doing or actually are doing regarding blockchain, blockchain with credentialing. In Moldova, the government is working with a lot of digital identification experts from the United Nations Office for project services for ways to use blockchain to provide children living in the rural areas with a digital identity. So it's more difficult for traffickers to smuggle them across the borders. So I think this is huge. If really we can use the blockchain technology that can give the young kids a digital identity, then we can really stop the whole human trafficking. We can play a lot of role in stopping that. And also, another, probably some of you heard of it already, is blockchain with credentialing is from MIT. Heather going to talk about it.
And we're running out of time, so we're going to try to get this out as quickly as possible. But so MIT piloted with their Masters in Finance and Masters in Media Arts last year, and allowed students to have the option of receiving their digital diploma in addition to their paper diploma. And you can go onto their website and figure out how that works itself, but it's a pilot, because one of the issues is trying to get these things started. So it's great that MIT is starting to do that. It does pose a problem if you start launching this worldwide, and Amy's going to talk about that.
Yes, so just as libraries have provided technology access with computer labs for decades, libraries could assist those who do not have access to set up the public keys needed to share out their information. So it's not impossible, but it would be helpful to have assistance where moving from one wallet to another. For instance, if someone started on a library machine and then is able to have a cell phone or computer, each wallet is unique and lives on the machine it was created. So the owner will have the private key and create the public key to share the information or transfer the ownership or something like a Bitcoin.
So we won't get too much into these smart contracts, but smart contracts are also a useful way of working when you're talking about employment. So we've talked about credentials, which feeds into tying into work. But if you do work, you can trigger and automate. So if you think about the way that something like Airbnb works, you're able to, they keep something in escrow. It gets released on the second day after the person arrives, and then you leave ratings about each other. Same thing like with Uber.
We are definitely hitting our 2:30 time, but basically using blockchain for credentials is to create an open system for digital credentials. It's a basic digital credentialing system that makes it possible to verify a certificate, who was it issued to and by whom, and validate the content of the certificate. We originally designed some interactive activity, but I think we're now going to just skip it for now. Very quickly, I'm going to just run through a couple of library applications. One is the ebook media distribution platform, where the author would be able to decide on who I'm loaning this book to, or the users, if they have digital collections, they can decide on how my loan route is. I think this is something could be used in the refugees as well. And also research data, we're kind of a little rushing through here. It's called the Data Management Hub. It's also to help the scientists on a private blockchain that they can share their research together, sensitive data together. So very quickly, the summary. Using blockchain, it could reduce the brainwaves, eliminate the cost of obtaining credentials, lessen the reliance on one central organization, and also reduce human errors. So you have a lot of potentials. Obviously, to this session, it's really more talk about credentials, the potentials for blockchain to be used for the credentialing. And we're hoping to see more and more library applications in this. So we're going to just close by saying what do we see the role of the library in the blockchain for credentialing. Could the university and community libraries become the coordinator, driver, trainer for implementing the blockchain for credentialing? Or if there's any other roles you can see the library could play in applying blockchain for credentialing. So this is a little bit less. I don't know, Heather, do you have anything you want to add here?
No, I think that's it. We've used up our time, and I think everybody needs to go. But just to let you know, this is why everyone is talking about the potential for blockchain, is that it could change everything, and it could improve people's lives tremendously. And being able to have your information, if you're a student or you're trying to get into a college, or but you're not able to be in one place, this is a way that can help do that. So thank you.
Thank you so much, everyone. And we are available to answer questions if you want to stay around, but the keynote actually started like 2 minutes ago. Sorry about
that. So much information, but I appreciate you guys coming. Thank you.
Thank you.
And
Thank you so much.
We'll be here if